We got a lot to talk about today. We got some.
There's no shortage of things. I don't know how we're going to whittle it down.
Yeah, we got Oracle, which I know you have some thoughts on Oracle. There's
better for worst.
A study that I want to spend some time on that basically found that Instacart is showing varying grocery prices to people, and I think this has some actually profound impacts. I know you want to talk about the one-person unicorn, this bet that a lot of tech gods are making that there will be a one-person company that's eventually worth $1 billion. And then a couple stories at the end that we may or may not have time for given all that is going on right now. But let's do the show. So Malcolm, we have a ton to talk about today, but I want to start with this Disney OpenAI deal because I think this could be one of the worst corporate mistakes that any company has ever made, at least from a public relations standpoint. So Disney is putting $1 billion into OpenAI. They're investing into the company, and they will let the Disney characters, 200 of them about, be used on the Sora platform. This is a company, Disney, that has spent almost 100 years, if not more, very much protecting their characters and the ability of, think about Disney's trademark lawyers team and how aggressive they are if they see a small restaurant with a Mickey Mouse painted on it and they catch wind of that. And now they're saying, we want people to use these characters in AI-generated videos. And they're saying, we'll put guardrails around it so they can't do anything inappropriate, which maybe sounds good on paper for the first 30 seconds you hear it. But right now, Disney is making a bet against the internet that the internet cannot find horrible things to do with Disney characters on an AI-generated video platform. That is one scenario. The other scenario is that they treat it almost like a virtual puppet. Shout out to Defunctland. And you can only do sort of like a Mad Libs style creation with the Disney character. But if they go the other way, my prediction is that as soon as they open up Disney characters to the internet like this, people will find workarounds to put Disney characters in absolutely horrific situations. And this is a company that has basically, their brand is childhood and purity in a lot of ways. And I have no idea why they're doing this.
Yeah, my initial thought here was, man, this smells like desperation. Like, I just want to be part of the conversation in any way, shape, or form. And so let me throw this out there and see what they think. But I started thinking about it a little bit differently later. Like, maybe their thought process is, this is going to happen anyway, right? The internet has already been out there making all kinds of animated videos and whatever using other characters, if not the Disney characters too. Maybe we ought to participate and do our best to control this, since one way or another, it's going to happen.
The key word you said there was do our best. Mm-hmm. And if I were them, I would be trying to keep those floodgates closed as long as possible.
Maybe they have, though. Maybe this is where they believe we've gone as far as we could. And now we got to start laying off some of those high-priced lawyers and invest those dollars instead into protecting our IP in the digital space starting in 2026.
Maybe. So the story I'm thinking of right now is so there's a great video on YouTube by this channel called Defunctland, and it's about how Disney has spent billions of dollars trying to bring characters to life. So when people go to a park, at one point, you could talk to Mickey Mouse, and it became a huge problem because some of the Mickeys talked, some of the Mickeys didn't. There was an inconsistency with the characters that people spoke with, and they would also have, and this was because of the people behind the characters often, these people puppeteering some of the characters you would meet. So one was, it was like the Professor Melon and Beaker from the Muppets. Mm-hmm. Two problems happen with this is that people want to say inappropriate things to the characters, and those puppeteers have to respond. And then the second problem that often happens is that it's a lot of dudes behind these puppets, and they get bored, they get horny, so then they start hitting on guests. And you don't want that from a Disney experience where you have some guy sitting in a room a mile away with plausible deniability. But when I saw this story, the first thing I thought of was this character interaction they tested where people could meet Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. And you would go into a room with 5 people and you would pick up a phone and you could talk to Stitch, and he was moving around the screen. And really, for a young kid, it was like, I'm really talking to Stitch right now. And for adults, it was basically magic. And there's a video of a group of people and they say, what do you want to ask Stitch? And one of the guests shouts out, hey, Stitch, how many genders are there? And the puppeteer at that point could have taken the option to say, like, what's that? And then you do a distraction and then you move on to the next part of the interaction. Instead, Malcolm, the guy goes, well, there's boys and girls and androgynous. And you do not want that from a Disney experience. And I think that this is going to devalue a lot of characters and sort of, once you introduce them to the open floodgates of the internet, I think it could not ruin them, but it's they're never going to be the same once you do that.
I see somebody still has their Disney kid hat on. Like, I don't ever think about this franchise in that way, the way that you're describing, like when you use the word pure to describe Disney movies and characters, I've never really thought about them that way. Like, I get what you're saying. I don't disagree with it, but I've never really even thought about them that way. Like, they're just cartoons. And
I'm glad you called me a Disney kid and not a Disney adult. Let's go to this Oracle story. I don't think you're that excited to talk about Oracle, but I know you have a lot of thoughts on it. Oracle reported this week, got smacked a little bit, even though there was a big number that I want to highlight real quick, which is that they have $500 billion in remaining performance obligations. That means revenue they haven't written down yet, but promised from other companies so they can use their data centers, basically. So Oracle gets smacked by the market. What did you make of this? What are your thoughts on Oracle?
Yeah, you're right that I am hesitant to speak about Oracle again because it's taken up so much of my brain space for the last 2-3 weeks. This is a result of basically Sam Altman deciding he doesn't like a question from an investor and public and not responding properly. And basically anything that is any way and closely related to OpenAI is being punished again for the sins of a founder. And so really what we're seeing happen. So you mentioned 500 billion in remaining performance obligations. My concern with Oracle, as it ran all the way up to about $350 per share from $230, was that all of that was based on announced deals. It was not tangible, revenue coming into the house anytime soon. This is remaining performance obligations throughout 2030. So my concern, too, is the two companies that this is built on. One, OpenAI that I mentioned already. The other one's Meta. And they've already been going through their own challenges about how they're going to tell the story of how they're investing in AI and everything else. And the reason that you wanted to be using Oracle and their multi-cloud strategy was to get access to NVIDIA's GPUs. Well, Meta comes out and says through their, pre-planned slip, we might decide to use Google's TPUs. We'll see. Well, now what does that say about the need to go to Oracle to get access to GPUs? Then you look on the other side and where there's questions about, can OpenAI actually generate enough revenue to satisfy the $1.4 trillion worth of spending commitments they've got out there? The failure to answer that question creates doubt, and that doubt starts to shine a light on Oracle, because so much of what Oracle is borrowing money out there to do is build data centers basically to suit one customer, which is OpenAI. And so if for whatever reason OpenAI was to come back to Oracle 6 months down the road and say, hey, we told you that number was 300, it's actually 2, or it's actually 1. Now, all of a sudden, everything I as an Oracle shareholder had built my hopes and dreams on no longer exists in the way that I thought it did. And then I listened to the Oracle earnings call this week, and basically they did everything they could. Their management team did everything they could not to have to answer the question of how much is too much? Like, how much are you going to borrow altogether for this build out? And 2, what happens if OpenAI calls you up tomorrow morning and says, we changed our mind. The landscape looks different. It's code red over here. We can only really now stay committed to half of what we told you before. Like, all of that was the big question hanging over the earnings call, and we got none of that. All of that is the reason why Oracle's share price is now off about a third from their most recent high back in September, I think September 10. And all of that is the reason why I, as a shareholder, decided to pull the trigger and completely get out of this company altogether.
A lot there. I think it's worth noting as well, we've talked about on the show before, renting data centers, this business for Oracle, it's not a super high margin business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a big customer cut like that and you're putting a ton of money back into building data centers, that could be, that's a longer term issue, I would say, than a company like NVIDIA having someone say, we're going to scale back orders on your GPUs. It's a really high margin business. They know they can find other customers for it. And this is a basic question. Why does OpenAI need to do business with Oracle? Microsoft has data centers, right?
Well, they don't have the risk appetite or the willingness to build to suit OpenAI the way Oracle does. So that's one of the challenges that Microsoft had to make a hard decision on. It sounds like they made the right decision in hindsight. Their CFO, Amy Hood, is who's credited with saying, no, we're not going to do that, Sam. You got to find it somewhere else. And that led to them forming this open relationship later on after their initial agreement. So basically, Microsoft built a data center for OpenAI. And all along the way, the OpenAI team complained about how long it was taking. We can't believe, construction never finishes on time, right? And this is in the middle of Wisconsin. So you can imagine how harsh the winters might be construction wise. It kind of slows things down. And so Microsoft is coming back and saying, look, we ran into an issue here. Construction's delayed a couple of weeks. We ran into an issue here, still having trouble powering on the data center. Simple things like that are out of their control, sends the OpenAI team into a stir and oh my God, I can't believe you're holding us back like this. And so Microsoft's decision at that point was, we can't hang our hats on this one company and let this be the reason we flourish or fail. Oracle said, hold my beer.
This episode is sponsored by Capital Area Planning Group. Capital Area Planning Group is a fiduciary wealth management firm that specializes in helping high net worth individuals and families navigate the complexities that come along with managing concentrated stock options, multiple income streams, and an ever-changing tax code. While our team of certified financial planners are well-versed in all things personal finance, our areas of expertise include equity compensation, estate planning, and multi-year tax planning. At Capital Area Planning Group, we believe in pricing transparency. That's why our fees are posted on our website, right alongside the various services we perform on behalf of our clients throughout the year. If you're tired of receiving the same cookie-cutter advice from your financial advisor, then don't wait. Reach out to us today at capgllc.com to experience a better approach to wealth management. Again, that web address is www.capgllc.com.
Let's go to this Instacart story. I think this is fascinating and disturbing. So Groundwork Collective, it's a progressive advocacy group, did a study where they took a few hundred shoppers and had them simultaneously add items from a specific grocery store. So they're trying to strip out differences in, is it a different store? Is it a different time of day? And what they found is that these shoppers on Instacart who are all buying the same items from the same store, and they did this in multiple cities, most of the time, those items were offered at different price points, about 3/4 of the time to be exact. And so what they found is basically what may be happening is a company like Instacart looks at your browsing history, tries to determine how wealthy you are, or your previous purchase history, and then adjusts prices based on that. When you're on there, it's not like going to a grocery store. They are algorithmically pricing you to see if they can juice it just a little bit more to see if you'll buy a jar of Skippy peanut butter for $3 instead of $2.75. All in all, this becomes about a 7% difference they found. So for a basket of groceries, this could turn into, they say, $1,200 per year. And I assume that's just for someone who's shopping on Instacart all the time. But I don't know, Malcolm. Do you want to rant on this first, or do you want me to go?
So here's what I'll say. I'll say this quickly because I know you have strong feelings about this. As a person who shops on Instacart, I have had this feeling before. My wife and I have had this conversation before. She has been in the store before and said, hey, I'm on Instacart looking at this thing. And also when I'm in the store, it's $4 cheaper. Can you believe this? Right. So it's one thing to have anecdotal, like, this is how I feel kind of evidence. And then it's another thing to have, okay, I'm seeing this, but maybe it's unique in the sense that it's this one store or it's this one item or whatever. But from a study that you're talking about with a few hundred random shoppers that they've selected in different places, and the majority of the time this is the case, it actually makes me upset that now I have proof that it is actually the thing. Like, I like the convenience of Instacart. I don't like feeling like I'm being taken advantage of. And now you've just told me, yes, you're being taken advantage of. It's not your paranoia. And now I'm a little upset.
So the first thing that I'm going to do after this is if I ever want to make a grocery purchase on Instacart, which I don't normally do, or I want to make a big purchase online, I think I'm going to just start Googling things like, should I file Chapter 7 or Chapter 13 bankruptcy, cheap ramen bulk, I'm about to be evicted, what do I do? Just to see if I can get maybe that extra 3 to 5%. But number one, I think this is bad for society. This is just objectively bad for society. It's one thing to have dynamic pricing for a non-essential item like a sporting event. That's something people don't necessarily... You don't need to go to an NBA game. You don't need to go to an NFL game. I know I sound like Dave Ramsey here, and sometimes that can actually come to your benefit. I've enjoyed in years past, Denver Nuggets. Sometimes you can get lower corner tickets for like $50 on a Tuesday if you don't mind seeing the New Orleans Pelicans play. But for something like, what's that?
I mind.
You mind?
I do.
Why do you mind?
I don't want to watch the Pelicans play. I can't name you one player on that team right now.
Do you want to see a superstar play?
Yeah.
We get that every night in Denver. We have Jokic. So it's worth it to me. If Denver comes to your town, you're like, oh, I want to go see a superstar play. Well, I want to see a superstar play too. I just might have to see him play. Is Zion still in the Pelicans? I don't know. Anyway, where was I going with this? I went from grocery to who is currently the roster of the New Orleans Pelicans. So this is bad for society. This is actually why you need government control of some industries, is so companies cannot do this. Who this ultimately hurts in some respects too are people who cannot go to the grocery store. So Instacart is a tremendous benefit if someone's really ill, if someone can't drive, if someone has a disability, and you're playing these algorithmic pricing games on folks like that. This is where you need sometimes government to say, hey, we're going to rein in capitalism just a little bit on, jacking up prices of essential items that people need to buy.
This government?
This government. Yeah.
Are you sure?
I'm still waiting.
Oh, okay.
They're going to get on it. Just give them a sec. The other thing with this is I think this is ultimately bad for Instacart. Because if you build a business around just annoying people when they have other options, if this becomes part of the narrative where Instacart is saying, oh, our retailers set prices. No, and then retailers like Target say, it is Instacart setting the prices on here. And this gets out more and more, which is if you go to Instacart, not only are you not getting a good value, but they are jerking you around on pricing based on who you are. I think that's a tough stink to get off if the story continues to grow. So I think this is bad for people, and I think this is bad for Instacart. When you look at retailers just as stocks that have historically done well, it's places where people go and they're happy to buy things. And the two that come to mind are Walmart and Costco. I've been if you go in a Costco and you just look at the people in a Costco, they seem kind of happy compared to a Target. You go into a Target, people are stressed, the prices are high. They're like, I don't know. There's just like a sense of malaise that I've noticed in a Target where I go to a Costco. People are spending hundreds of dollars, but it doesn't matter because you're like, man, I'm getting beef for $12 a pound. I'm getting a hot dog, which has beef and maybe some other things for $1.50. I can get a 3-gallon thing of coffee for $20. We're having a Sunday, Malcolm. So
Target needs to give out free samples is what I'm hearing you say.
Target needs people to walk in and feel good about the purchases they make. And the only way you can do that, unfortunately, is by having fewer SKUs, fewer units you sell, which is also against sort of the promise of Target. So I think it's less free samples and more just like, man, I'm spending a lot of money on this right now.
I would argue you need to go to a different Target in a different part of town and or during the day. Early afternoon, because that Target experience is very different than the Saturday, Sunday morning. People are pissed off that they had to come to Target type of shopper. There's a night and day difference between people's moods when you go certain times and in certain locations.
If you've seen a difference in how people shop at a Target mood wise, vibe wise, you know what? Let's do comments. Let's do Spotify comments for this one. If you're listening on Spotify, let us know in the comments of this episode. One other piece of this story that I think is really interesting is how Instacart has been trying to justify these dynamic price increases and decreases. And I'll shout out Ben Castleman at the New York Times. He wrote a story on this, kind of about the study, and talked to Instacart about this. This was from a Instacart spokesperson saying, quote, "The pricing tests are short-term, randomized, and designed so people may see slightly lower prices and some may see slightly higher prices, with the goal of helping retail partners understand consumer preferences and identify categories where they should invest lower prices," end quote. I think that is one of the funniest lines that I have ever read from a spokesperson saying, we are randomly raising prices on people so we can help our retail partners understand consumer preferences. Because, you know, some people might like spending more money on an essential item.
Mm-hmm. So
we can go on to the next thing if you don't want to respond to that. That's just a spokesperson making a Horcrux of their soul right there, Malcolm.
I already don't like Instacart. I don't like the model as an investor. I don't like the food delivery model as an investor. I think it's impossible to make money if it's done genuinely. And so I'm going to throw Uber into this same bucket. Uber Eats, Uber Car, Uber Scooter, whatever it is, like it's impossible for them to make the margins necessary to run this business profitably without gouging you somehow, some way, somewhere. And this is as a person who uses Uber Eats on a regular enough basis. I also only use Instacart now for Costco. Ironically, you say that. I hate Costco. I love what the company represents. I love the products that they have. I hate physically being in that place. It raises my blood pressure to the point that I am willing to knowingly overpay someone at Instacart to go shop for me and bring it to my house so I don't have to set foot in that place. So that's my caveat to that story.
I cannot relate. I love going to a Costco. That was a part of my childhood. Do you just not have a sense of wonder and discovery and enjoy
Apparently
free samples?
So. Apparently I have no sense of wonder or whimsy or whatever. I'm not a Disney guy. I'm not a Costco guy. I don't know where my third strikes are going to come from in this episode, but
let's see the story about a one-person unicorn. I know that this is something you've been thinking about, which is that a lot of our tech gods, Sam Altman, there's like a group chat with like large tech CEOs, and there's a bet going on saying, when will there be the first one-person unicorn? Which is to say, with AI, when will one person be able to just start a company that is valued at $1 billion that venture capital puts money behind? This feels somewhat cynical to me, but why is this an interesting story to you, Malcolm?
Yeah, I find it interesting because it does give you it gives you the two sides of the coin as it relates to AI. So where we've been wanting to know, is AI going to replace people who do X, Y, or Z thing out there in society? The answer to that question, we've already known in some way, is yes. It's just yes, how and to what extent. And also, yes, it replaces jobs, but does it create other new ones? And I think this story helps to answer the second question of, does it create new ones? And the answer is not necessarily. So maybe you have the first 50 people manage to target the first $1 billion company that has one employee, and they end up having to hire 5 or 6 programmers to get them there. And that's the extent of it. So you got a 10 person, $1 billion company. But that's not that far off if you consider how many video games have been created by a team of 20 or 30 or 40, how many, messaging apps, social media platforms, things like that by a team of 10, 20, 40. And so it is very possible. And it's a little bit disheartening for the person who is afraid that their job is going to be replaced by AI, because this kind of gives the impression that maybe the other jobs that are supposed to be created by AI don't suddenly show up when this person who gets there first, or these people who get there first, prove to the valley, you don't really need a lot anymore.
Yeah, I think the important point is this did not start with artificial intelligence. This is a shift that's been going on for a long time. TechCrunch reported that Microsoft bought the Minecraft maker Mojang, I think I said that correctly, for $2.5 billion, which had 40 employees. Facebook bought WhatsApp for $19 billion when the messaging app had 55 people there. So this is something that since computers have been around, there's been sort of a rush toward it. But I think you're absolutely right. I think this is a reminder that basically, okay, since 1980, since computers really started taking off, the real wages of American workers have basically been flat. And you've been punished if you've had a high school education or less, when you could get a raise by working in a car factory and looking at a hyper-specific machine part. Since then, your wages have slowly been going down. The people who have essentially won in this scenario are people with post-grad degrees, people who are working in the technology field. And I think that will be even more concentrated with AI. And you're even seeing things now where companies are saying, hey, we're going to have AI coworkers for you. And I heard someone explain, I heard someone explain this, and I don't want to mention who it was. It was incredibly dark, where they're like, you're going to have an AI coworker working alongside you, and you should treat them just like any employee. And I'm thinking, the company's not, because this AI coworker, first of all, it's going to make mistakes. Who's going to be held responsible for it? It's not going to take a sick day. It's not going to complain when it has to work overtime. But that's, I think, one of the things you're going to start hearing from more and more corporate leaders, which is we're employing right now, but we're employing AI agents. We're employing AI coworkers. We're not putting on an additional headcount right now.
What a society that's going to shape up to be.
Sure.
Have you ever typed thank you to ChatGPT?
Yeah, I say please and thank you all the time. I want it to be nice to me.
It feels weird, right? But I think that's the AI coworker interaction that you're describing, where I'm like, no, this isn't what I asked you for. Go back and do this again. I talk to ChatGPT that way, where people smack a dog with a newspaper for doing something bad. But then on the flip side, I'm like, okay, thanks. And I'm like, that's weird. Why am I telling this machine thank you?
Because you're training yourself to just be polite on the internet. Because if this is the text input where I'm just used to being angry and saying rude things into a text box on the internet, that may have disastrous implications in other interactions when I'm talking to a real person.
Back, though, to the workplace in the way that I know you intended to frame it, not my random musings.
You can. You can go wherever you want. It's your show too, man.
What I'm thinking about, though, is the opportunity that exists today for someone graduating from college, graduating from grad school, who can come alongside a person who has recently been let go from a job at some tech company, I'll say specifically, like one of the big FANG companies. They've been doing waves of layoffs and such, and people in their 50s, maybe 60s are looking around and going, what's next, right? Like, I don't really want to retire. I'm still young. I got some fight in me, but what's next? I'm thinking there's an opportunity for that younger person who understands how to use a lot of these different AI tools to run a business, to come alongside that person that has all that industry know-how to run the rest of the business for them. So they need social media, they need bookkeeping and light accounting work done. Well, AI can do both of those things. They need, someone to do a good job of transcribing whatever their meetings are and turning that into, like, AI can do that. So a younger person could be building a business themselves right now that does all of the stuff around being a, dare I say, thought leader, even though I hate that phrase. Come alongside somebody who's got that knowledge in their brain and wants to share it and profit from it, but doesn't want to have to do all the other crap to run the business. Like, that to me is a huge opportunity for the next decade or so before AI learns how to be that young college graduate too and contact that person and cut you out of the equation.
So Jensen Huang was on Rogan, and this relates to what you're saying. And one of the points that he made, two points. One on career stuff is he looked at, he's essentially said there's been career growth for radiologists despite the fact that AI can read x-rays. Mm-hmm. So there's still going to be, if you have a job, it's in a lot of ways, if you're interacting human to human, that's a good thing. And then it's going to take out a lot of work that's just data processing. So if that's your job, it's not great. But if you're translating things and communicating with people, diagnosing and helping, you might be okay. And the second thing he said that I thought was interesting is that now access to information, those gates are coming down. It is easier to find things out than ever. So like two small examples for this show are using AI to identify 90-second-ish clips to post on social, and then you can get different camera cuts so it can appease people who are in the glow state. And then when I'm learning something like, hey, how do I make a thumbnail for YouTube? I can go and say, hey, this is the Tim Dillon Show. I want to make thumbnails like this on Canva. How do I do that? And it says, this is how you do it. And I upload an image of what I created, and they say, oh, the spacing's a little off. You may want to add some blur and a different gradient on your background. And it can be a tutor in a lot of ways that is hyper specific and effective that you may not be able to find out just from straight Google searches. So I think that that's been good. I think you're absolutely right. Where being the young person who knows about AI is going to be an advantage.
I was just about to say, like, that's where the young person like you gets to come in and go through the tutorials and learn how to apply what, the AI tool, the tutor, you use the word, sure, just taught you. But again, the 50, 60-year-old thought leader in cybersecurity is not about to sit and learn and have, a TikTok party for 8 hours straight to figure out how to do that thing, which makes the young person super valuable to them, like from purely from a financial standpoint, but also it creates a job that didn't exist before. Like on my day job, like a lot of our clients are people who get paid in equity from the companies that they work for, restricted stock units and other different forms of equity compensation. It used to take a decent amount of time for an associate advisor on the team to comb through Excel spreadsheets and brokerage statements to pull out the data on share vestings, pay stub information, tax withholding information, all that. There's a tool two tools now that we use together that comb through all of that information for us and put it in the proper boxes where we needed to start to do that analysis. So it cut out, 4 hours of staff time now that we used to have to spend actually extracting data and knowing where to put it.
But you still need to have humans analyze, communicate, and make recommendations based on that data, which is right, where it's a little bit different. Also, I'm not having an 8-hour TikTok party, man. I'm trying to use it to grow this show.
No, the youngs will spend 8 hours on TikTok to master a thing is what I was referring to. Like I find out about things that happen on TikTok from YouTube. Like that's how old I am. But I've learned that people will go super deep into these wormholes on TikTok to feel like they've mastered a thing and then emerge as the expert and start posting about their expertise based on a bunch of, information they glean from other people from TikTok. What YouTube used to be.
So the other opportunity that I think will be here is for businesses that are hyper niche and hyper local. I think there's going to be, unevenly distributed rewards for people who can build the best AI agent for stock trading, or a customer service rep that actually answers your questions. Maybe that's the $1 billion unicorn. I have no idea. It'll probably be something we don't expect, or it'll be a video game. But I also think that there's going to be a more evenly distributed, you still got to work for it, but a more evenly distributed rewards for people that are building things that are hyper local and in person. I've been to a couple of these. It's at a co-working space in Denver called The Company, and they do PowerPoint parties. What's that?
So that's real creative.
It is. They have a little punch clock. They're good with design. I think they do a nice job with it. And they do these like PowerPoint parties, and I think they get more than 100 people there. And it's kind of like an open mic, but someone presents on a topic that they're interested in. And a lot of people show up just because they want to hear about people talk about things in person, not necessarily just on a podcast. And it's a lot of fun. There's variance. It's some of them are really good, some of them are not so good, but either way, they're 7 minutes long. So if you're like, this is great, you get a little scoop. If it's not so great, it's over in 7 minutes. But I think that this is the kind of thing where people who are promoting those types of events that are interesting in person allow people to meet each other, where, if you go to an event like this, you can meet a stranger and talk about a topic you heard a presentation about. You're not doing, how's the weather? What is your family structure? Where are you from? And what do you do for a living? Okay, I guess I have nothing else to say. Let's move on. I think that'll be successful. And I think the other thing that could be successful that I've seen are these like work clubs or co-working spaces that are really designed beautifully, and people want to go and spend time there. And a lot of that is a response, I think, to some work from home, but also a desire of people to be together with others in local situations. And I think there's room for a lot of entrepreneurs there, maybe more than AI.
I think what you're describing is our new society's desire to be alone together. Like, those giant tables at Starbucks where it's like 10 seats. It's the really long table that's got the handicap seat at the end.
Yep.
A lot of people vie for those seats at the Starbucks. They take their MacBook, sit there. I don't know what they're actually doing, but trying to look busy. But strangers commune still at that table. I know it's not quite the third place the way Schulte wanted it to be, or it used to be. But that table specifically, I noticed when I go into Starbucks at like 10 a.m., there's a bunch of people sitting there with headphones on, completely ignoring each other, but they're alone together.
I think it's good for people if you're working with others in a space, even if you don't know them and you see them working, it encourages you to get stuff done as well. I wouldn't say it's I don't know what they're working on, but I think it's healthy for people to have those soft social interactions. I think both are correct, right? People want to be alone together, and also people want to meet people and talk about things outside of the internet. And I think there's going to be space for both of that.
That kind of goes back to the whole workplace, back to work argument, the conversation we were having on a previous episode, where I think we took or take for granted how much of our lives actually revolve around our profession and our workplace. Like, think about how many people who are probably 40, maybe 45 and older met their spouse or significant other at work, or in some thing that was related to work. Maybe not even at work directly, but like a coworker introduced you to your significant other. Like, those are the kinds of things that I think we take or took for granted as it relates to how we work.
I would agree. Anything else on this before we quickly hit this Paramount Skydance thing?
Nope, I'm done.
Okay.
No rant.
Listeners, Malcolm is all good. He's ended his rant. He feels good. He's at peace. We've talked a lot about Netflix, Paramount, and some of those we've had to cut from the show just because this story changes so quickly.
Yeah.
The thing that is interesting to me that I don't think a ton of people are talking about is with this. So there's a bidding war for Warner Brothers Discovery, It's got a movie studio. It's got some cable channels. Netflix just wants HBO in the movie studio. Paramount Skydance says we'll take the whole thing. And David Ellison was very unhappy that Warner Brothers went with Netflix. And now there's a hostile bid that they've placed, and Netflix is allegedly in an exclusive agreement. It's a whole mess. But what I think is interesting about this, Malcolm, is that the bid as of today, Friday, December 12th, from Paramount Skydance was $30 a share. And the supposed advantage of Paramount Skydance is they would take the whole company. We want the TV channels, we want the movie studio, we want HBO. The other bidders, and now Comcast is out, was saying we want to slice this off bit by bit. The disadvantage of that is, do you want Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds to be an owner of CNN? It's a discussion for another time. The interesting part for this show is Paramount Skydance said, we'll put $30 a share in for Warner Brothers Discovery. And in the options market, there are people placing large wagers on Warner Brothers shares going above $30. And I think that's interesting because normally when people are trying to do this merger arbitrage, they're saying we'll buy was it Activision Blizzard for $30 and Microsoft has bid $35, but we think they'll get the deal through and I'll make $5 on each of those shares. Whereas you have these option bidders saying right now, this party's just getting started. You're going to need to go way above 30, even though that's the bet you've made right now. I have not seen this before, but it gives me a little caution as a Paramount Skydance shareholder.
I have learned not to, I don't mean this literally, but I've learned not to bet against the poly markets at this point.
Yeah.
Because on so many of these big things, the consensus bet tends to be right. I learned that with election day back in November. So if they say it's going above 30, I say it's going above 30.
And these are large whales placing options bets, not on a prediction market. So I think it is very interesting to pay attention to.
Or does nobody buy it? Is that the ultimate outcome of this whole fiasco anyway? Like, does everybody say, you know what, forget it, Netflix pays the breakup fee, they got it. Paramount walks away and finds something else to play with. Like, does everybody just walk away from this pissed off and leave it alone?
No, because you have just told the son of one of the wealthiest people in the world, don't tell a billionaire he can't have something he wants.
Is this what it's like to have a rich dad?
That you get the UFC streaming rights as one gift, and then you get Warner Brothers Discovery as another. Maybe,
man. Like I'm searching for like what's the right book to buy my kid, not what's the right Fortune 100 company to buy my kid.
I think that now that you're out on Papa Ellison, I need to get you in on the Sun. We're doing Team Paramount Skydance. No, the actual thing that has made me hesitant about this is, are they just willing to bid for this at all costs? Mm-hmm, and if that's the case, it might be one of those, it might be a monkey's paw wish, which is congratulations, you got what you wanted and you paid a lot for it. And maybe 5-10 years from now, people are saying it wasn't worth it.
Well, hang on though, because Larry Ellison's wealth is 100% tied to the stock price of Oracle. He's famously never sold a share he didn't have to, and the shares he did sell were just to pay some tax bills. You know, a few billion here, a few billion there. But for the most part, all he does is borrow against his shares when he needs liquidity and use that cash to splash it around however he needs to. Whenever he passes away, the shares are going to go to his kids. They step up into his cost basis. They can then sell and sidestep the tax bill, right? So what if Oracle's share price falls to a point at which this deal can't happen anymore because of how much of the capital is coming from Oracle shares and the leverage against it?
That's a good take. I don't have a smart response for it, but that's a storyline to watch. As we end the show, if you've made it to this point, one thing that can really help us out is if you rate and review it wherever you listen. So if you're on Spotify, you can rate it on there. If you're on Apple Podcasts, leaving a 5-star rating and just a couple sentence review, maybe something you found value in, really helps us grow this show as we get this thing going. And you can follow me on X at RickSoSlick. I'm Ricky Mulvey on LinkedIn. And Malcolm is just about everywhere at Malcolm on Money. One of the things that I've really enjoyed with this show is keeping the conversation going. If we talk about an investment idea, someone brings in their alternate perspective on, it could be office REITs. Our friend Scott Trench of Bigger Pockets Money talking about cousins a little more deeply on LinkedIn with me. I really enjoy that. It can be the beginning of a conversation and then hearing your thoughts, especially if they're related to the show and maybe not my appearance. Not that we've had those conversations. Anyway, happy to end it there. Malcolm, this was fun as always.
Information shared in this recording and by its guests represent the views and opinions of the guests and does not represent the views or opinions of the host. This content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. This content is not, nor is it intended to be a substitute for professional financial advice. It is always recommended that you seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your personal financial situation.